Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad addressing students at Columbia University in New York, a controversial speech at this university. And just before Mr. Ahmadinejad started to speak, the university's president, Lee Bollinger, took the same stage, standing just to the right of the Iranian leader, and spoke for a good deal of time in an astonishingly harsh introduction to an invited guest, calling him a ridiculous and dangerous propagator of dangerous propaganda, calling the Iranian leader on his remarks about the Holocaust being denied either brazenly provocative or astonishingly uneducated. Let's listen to some of those remarks earlier.
Mr. President, you exhibit all the signs of a petty and cruel dictator. And so I ask you, why have women, members of the Baha'i faith, homosexuals, and so many of our academic colleagues become targets of persecution in your country? Why, in a letter last week to the Secretary General of the UN, did Akbar Ganji, Iran's leading political dissident, and over 300 public intellectuals, writers, and Nobel laureates express such grave concern that your inflamed dispute with the West is distracting the world's attention from the intolerable conditions in your regime within Iran?
The truth is, as we've been monitoring the speech, it's been pretty unremarkable so far, and the afternoon may be remembered really for the fight between the professor and the president, the remarkable remarks given there by the president of Columbia University. The president of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, responded, he said, also to some applause, "We don't think it's necessary before the speech is given to come with some series of claims." He suggested that in Iran, they treat their invited speakers with a little bit more of a warm welcome. Well, Patrick Cronin, Director of Studies at the Institute for National Strategic Studies, joins us now. Is President Ahmadinejad going to only end up stronger at home, more popular because of all this anger that he's elicited in the United States, do you think?
Well, he definitely is speaking in part to his domestic audience. What he's doing right now in his speech is giving very much a philosophical treatise, setting the stage for probably giving a softer image of Iran. He wants in America and the international community to, I think, put across a softer image that Iran wants peace, it's seeking its rights on nuclear energy, it doesn't want war. But clearly he was thrown off of his remarks by the harsh introduction. He was forced to respond, and in that response, I'm not sure that that played necessarily to the gallery back in Tehran. He is feeling some heat under the threat of a third round of sanctions. He had to address the Majlis, the parliament of Iran, before he left Iran, to reassure them that he was seeking the right course by reaching out to the United States. So, in a sense, you may be right, though, that because he said, listen, I expect to have an olive branch out for the United States and for the international community, to be given that kind of harsh introduction is, in a sense, being hijacked. And I think maybe he can turn that to his advantage domestically back in Iran.
He has said some astonishing and atrocious things. He's talked about Israel being wiped off the map, about the Holocaust being a myth. But he gives speeches every day, and for the most part, they're not really all that remarkable. Which do you think we're likely to see in the next few days? Because he's scheduled to speak a lot. Are we going to see the rhetorically relaxed, calm, comforting Ahmadinejad talking about religion and the great themes of our time? Or are we going to see the firebrand, the fiery speaker who gets people so excited back home and so nervous around the world?
Well, I think you will still see a bit of edge in some of his speeches, but I don't think you're going to see Ahmadinejad, the firebrand, emerge in New York or at the United Nations General Assembly this week. Instead, I think his main message to the international community, and especially to the United States political entity, is simply to say, listen, Iran wants peace. All of this talk about war, about sanctions, is trumping up essentially war, which shouldn't be the case because we want to talk and we want to have diplomacy. So he's clearly trying to put a wedge in between the hardline community in the United States and Europe to say sanctions and mistreatment of Iran are not the way to go if you want to make a deal with us. We want to make a deal.
And what is he telling his people back home? You talked about his domestic audience. He's having some trouble back home?
Yes. I think, first of all, in the president's introduction, he made Ahmadinejad sound 10 feet tall, like the dictator of Iran. Of course, anybody who knows Iranian politics, including Professor Richard Bullitt, who set this meeting up at Columbia, Ahmadinejad is only one actor, and by all means, no dictator in that sense. But yes, he is extreme, and he has said outrageous things, and he has defended outrageous policies as well on the part of Iran. He's going to skirt around most of those differences right now, or at least he wants to skirt around them, and he wants to emphasize the peace theme. Why? Because this past year in particular, the international community led by the European Union, the EU3, by the United States, but also with Chinese and even some Russian support, has successfully taken a referral from the technical body, the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is not the United States, which is not just Europe. It is an international body, and they've said, after 4 years of investigating Iran's nuclear program, we don't know whether they're cheating. We don't know whether they're really building a nuclear weapon. We need to refer this to the UN Security Council to take further action so that we can get better access. And so this speech is a bit of buying some time and also trying to turn the image around of Iran, which may be heading toward a third round of sanctions, which may even be heading into the danger of military strikes sometime in the next year against their embryonic nuclear program, whether it's building weapons or not.
Patrick Cronin at the Institute for National Strategic Studies. Thanks so much for talking with us. The amazing thing is in all of this that it's not the president of Iran, but the president of Columbia University who have made maybe the biggest headlines today. We saw Lee Bollinger calling him a petty dictator and a tyrant, and really swinging with both hands.
Absolutely swinging, and with the president right there on stage as well, sitting there while all this was going on. But, you know, we're just into the early moments of the speech here, so let's wait and see what he says as this rolls on, because that could be interesting.
He's been disarmingly mild-mannered so far, but Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, president of Iran, continues to talk. We'll continue with Your World Today.
We'll be back in just a moment. You're watching CNN.